Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Marwan Tabbara will be in Guelph court today to face some charges from April, charges that only came out last Friday because Guelph police were forced to confirm to multiple media outlets that they arrested him on April 10th. Here's the CBC News article from a few hours ago. Liberals allowed MP Marwan Tabbara to run in 2019 election despite sexual harassment investigation. Member of Parliament Marwan Tabbara, who is expected to appear in court today to face assault and criminal harassment charges, was approved to run for the Liberals in the 2019 federal election despite a party investigation into allegations of sexual harassment made against him during his last mandate, CBC News has learned. The Liberals looked into detailed allegations of misconduct made against the Kitchener South Hespeler MP that included inappropriate touching and unwelcome sexual comments directed at a female staff member, according to sources with knowledge of the allegations. The allegations date back to the 2015 election campaign, the source said. The sources who spoke to CBC News requested anonymity, citing the risk of being blacklisted within Liberal circles and it negatively impacting their careers. I think that it's interesting, if you believe in this post-national, post-woke movement, and you believe that, #MeToo, believe all women, the Kavanaugh hearings, the 30-year-old accusations, all of that stuff, you would think that somebody saying this person did XYZ to me, you would think the Liberals would flock to that person, right? We've got a victim in our own midst. We've got a villain right here, right? Boom, there you go. You've got him. It's all wrapped up. You'd think the virtue signaling hordes would be, all over the Twitter and all over the everything, but no, it took an arrest for him to be removed from the Liberal caucus. Wow. Right? Like anonymity for fear of being blacklisted and impacting their careers. Almost like if you say something on social media and somebody gets mad about it, and then they send it to your boss a bunch, or they send it to, whatever, dox you and find out where you work and blah, 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 all that stuff, right? It happens real time. But, these Liberals, they didn't want that to happen to them. Notable, right? Okay, back to this. CBC News has confirmed the party's internal investigation determined that some of the allegations were substantiated, but has not been able to learn whether Tabbara faced any consequences. Oh yeah, this stuff happened, but did he face any consequence? No, he did. Okay, all right. Or you can't find out? Don't know? Sorry, we don't talk about questions. We don't answer questions we don't like. Come back with a question that we like and we might answer it, maybe. Back to this. Despite Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's zero-tolerance policy on sexual misconduct in the workplace, the party approved Tabbara as a Liberal candidate last year. The decision to clear Tabbara to run as a Liberal took the party's Green Light Committee more than 6 months to make, an unusually long period of time for an incumbent, according to a government source with knowledge of the investigation. Tabbara, the past chair of the Commons Committee on International Human Rights, stepped away from the Liberal caucus 2 weeks ago, but is still working as an MP. He left the caucus after CBC and Global reported on his arrest by Guelph police on April 10th for a different incident. He has a scheduled court date in Guelph today for 2 counts of assault, 1 count of break and enter, and commit an indictable offense, and 1 count of criminal harassment. Those are some pretty serious charges. A whole bunch of things failed in the chain of communication between the police, the media, in that the police didn't tell the media and the media didn't care until they did, and then this whole thing blew up. But it's interesting that it took the media following up. Multiple requests were needed of the Guelph police to disclose this information. That's interesting to note too. I don't know why that would be, right? I don't know why that would be. Are you ready? Moving on from Marwan Tabbara, I'll give you an update when I get the update. I don't know if his charges are gonna stick, or if we're gonna have an MP in jail. You have to serve weekends. Man, wouldn't that be interesting, right? The Liberals, those absolutely spotless, perfect people, right? They're non-racist and they never do anything wrong, except that time when they got arrested and charged and thrown in jail. But he wasn't a Liberal anymore. They ejected him. So all the Liberals are top-notch. Sure. Believe that still? Right. Okay. Moving on. Here is Power in Politics. Are you ready to live in a world where tracking you is just a matter of the government keeping you safe? Is that the world that you want to live in? Because that is the world we are about to enter. That is the door we're walking through. And I don't know at what point will be the tipping point. If 7 people install this app, here's Justin Trudeau. I'm not going to play him because he's awful. I might do the dubbing because that might be fun. but I'd have to turn me off. Okay, we'll see. I'm not going to do it today, but we'll see. Well, I'll play with it. Some people have suggested some alternatives to playing Justin Trudeau clips because, I mean, it is like nails on a chalkboard, isn't it? I'll just read this tweet, and then I'll show you the next tweet, and I'm not going to play any video because, Doug, get a haircut. Because it's just a waste of time right now. Okay, so Power and Politics is reporting, quote, "You don't have to do anything around this application other than download it," said Justin Trudeau, announcing a new app that will alert people if they've come into contact with someone who has tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. Oh yeah, and I wonder what else it does, earn money just for every kilometer you walk, or all sorts of social credit stuff you could potentially earn, right? And here's the Ontario one. "We need to consistently and reliably track cases of COVID-19 in Ontario. That's why yesterday we announced our enhanced case management and contact tracing strategy. This capacity is critical as we continue to reopen." So the capacity to contact trace and updating the strategy. Now, I haven't read through the strategy, but I'm just showing you the apps are rolling out province-wide and at the federal level. You'd think they'd normalize. We're in Canada after all. Why do the feds need to collect it? Do you need to download both the federal app and the provincial app to be safe? Right? You better cover your bases. You might as well. We're all terrified. Stay in your houses. There's a state of emergency until July 15th now? Where's the emergency, Doug? I sent an email yesterday, got a response back. It was a form letter. Sometimes, I'll tell you, I sent an email to the Rockwood Conservation Area because of the news articles talking about how terrible people were and how they had to close down. And I had a very nice conversation with one of the superintendents there. They called me back. I left my phone number. I said I prefer to be phone called rather than emailed. Let's talk it out rather than go through the text, right? And we had a very lovely conversation. He invited me out there. He said, next time you're out there, come out and see me, which is great. And I understand better. Did you know that the funding for conservation areas, tax funding, like there are grants and things, but the regular taxpayer funding of conservation areas ended in the 80s? So they have property taxes and they have land maintenance costs to pay to the city and stuff. But they're essentially landowners, and they use revenue to maintain the parks and to maintain the trails and all that other stuff. I didn't know that, right? And it's a kind of a, why would I know that? And usually people assume that those things are taxpayer funded. I certainly did. And so finding that out gave me a different outlook on how things were handled. And it was interesting. It's always good to follow up. So not that it disappointed me that I got a form letter from Mr. Ford, but I don't know. There's a lot to unpack here, and I don't understand what the emergency is. Is it not allowed to understand exactly what the emergency is when we have very low numbers? Most places don't have any cases at all. And the numbers of infected, the numbers of ICU beds, all of that stuff was all very, very low, very manageable. Are we worried that it's going to be a big second wave? I think that there are people pushing for that, but I haven't seen viable evidence of that. The new lockdown in Beijing that happened yesterday, I heard, was from 20 new cases per day. 20 new cases per day, and they're locking down? Is that the model we're going to follow? So I don't know. There's lots of questions around this, but fundamentally, if the government gets a tool like this, advertisers get a tool like this, tracking you 24/7, when are you in your house, when are you out, if you're out, where are you, Starbucks or Tim Hortons, McDonald's or Burger King, right? It is concerning because it is more data layering over top of already the huge amount of data that's being collected by our cell phones. How many cameras are looking at you right now, right? Just one for me. All of the other ones are covered. But really, it's very, very interesting, this world we're entering. More and more, you are going to be required to have a passport to society. That's the slippery slope I think we're on right now. And man, this is happening so fast, so fast. So I don't even know how to stop it. I don't have a recommendation. Call your MP, but what is your MP going to do? Like, it's not like the federal MPs can stop Justin Trudeau. It's not like the provincial MPs can stop Doug Ford. Doug Ford's got a big majority. Justin Trudeau has the Bloc and the NDP. They're going to push through what they want to push through. The NDP the NDP is on board to do pretty much whatever spending that the Liberals want to do. The Bloc Québécois is on board to do a lot of what Justin Trudeau wants. And they're rattling a good saber recently, but it's still political theater until we don't even have a mechanism for a confidence vote to be brought to the House of Commons because the Liberals control the calendar and there are only 4 sitting days until until September. And you can bet there's probably going to be an emergency still in September. Emergency, there's COVID-19 in Canada. We can't go back to work. Go to Walmart and do your job. You're essential. But we can't go to Parliament. Right? It's just, man, there's too many questions for me to believe that they've got a good handle on how to even deal with the big data they would be getting, right? Like they would have the data coming in would just be like a fire hose, and you would need like data scientists to deal with that. You would need infrastructure to deal with that. Where's the infrastructure? Where are we sending this data? What servers are crunching this data? Like think about the just volume of people they're tracing. Come on. Like there are logistical questions about this that are not answered by here, download this app. Moving on. Scandal brewing. As Justin Trudeau's minister still can't provide proof of projects worth billions of dollars. It's about half. And yesterday I said it was about $5 billion, and I misspoke. $5 billion per year. So about half of the $10 billion spending, about half of it is unaccounted for, right? So if you go to the grocery store for a year and you tell your wife or partner, I'm spending about $500 a week on groceries, and you base your budget on that, and really you're spending $1,000 a week on groceries, that's going to look really different, and somebody's going to have questions. We've got questions. This exact scenario is playing out with the public purse, with the taxpayer money. Okay, here it is, and this is from the Post Millennial, backed up. This is Blacklock's reporting, and then Post Millennial. Okay. Infrastructure Minister Catherine McKenna was cited by the Parliamentary Budget Office yesterday for missing details on thousands of public works projects, which have likely caused headaches for the Trudeau minister since a June 2nd report from the PBO found that roughly 20,000 taxpayer-funded projects were lacking sufficient evidence to prove they had started. Giroux said that at the time, in 20,000 cases, records of those projects having started are nowhere to be found. Quote, we've asked the department and have been able to find information for 33,000 of these projects, Drew said. We have not been able to see a list that includes all these 52,000 to 53,000 projects, only 33,000 of these projects. I scroll down a little bit. There's a little bit of back and forth, and there's questions, etc., but here's an important one. Quote, how many billions are missing from the list, asked Pierre Poilievre, and quote, it's about half the program, said Mr. Giroux, Jacques Giroux, or said Jacques, one of the other people from the PBO. The PBO said it has been requesting a completed list of the projects since February 12th. Over 30,000 projects have been compiled, with 12,297 being itemized on June 5th, leaving more than 7,000 projects yet to be verified. Inconsistent data in this report refers to missing projects, project-level funding, exclusion of program-level funding, and incomplete project data, which refers but is not limited to missing locations, start dates and end dates, and projected funding, wrote analysts. So there's a lot of money missing, and it's supposed to be spent on infrastructure in Canada. And I say again that's what Trudeau campaigned on in 2015, and about half the money's gone missing. So they've done a bad job at this too. Yay, we've got an incompetent government that does a bad job and loses billions of dollars. And when I say loses, I'm putting it very nicely. I hope that's the answer. Oh, we just misplaced these receipts. Here's the other half, right? And it's not a more nefarious cause. But who knows? I don't know. I don't know. It's probably just a missing receipt thing. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Will we find out? I don't know. Maybe the government will fall and this whole thing will just poof, disappear, right? Stranger things have happened, right? Moving on, and here's Canada's relations with China as the same trend we've been on lately. It's bad and getting worse. Meng Wanzhou lost her appeal case, the double criminality stuff, and after losing that, this is how China responds. Ottawa Citizen reporting, China charges 2 Canadians with spying in Huawei-linked case. China has charged 2 detained Canadians with spying, escalating tensions between the two countries following the arrest in Vancouver 18 months ago of a senior Huawei executive wanted on U.S. charges. Chinese prosecutors said Friday that Michael Korvig was charged in Beijing on suspicion of spying for state secrets and intelligence. Michael Spavor was charged in Dandong City near the North Korean border on suspicion of spying for a foreign entity and illegally providing state secrets. Man, what an awful situation. Link is in the description. I'm not going to get into it, but the whole thing is just terrible. I hope that, and these guys are caught up in international diplomacy and brinksmanship and a whole bunch of a whole bunch of unfortunate stuff. I don't know if they're spies. I have no idea. I have absolutely, I have no inkling or anything to that effect. I have no connection to that world. But being, a business person on a trip in China and getting caught up in this would be awful. So, man, I hope this has a good resolution, but day by day it looks like it will not. It looks worse and worse. Okay, getting into the racism stuff. Yesterday, the CPC had a leadership debate. I haven't watched it yet. I didn't have time. It was on, and, when the CPC leadership starts talking about everybody's racist, RCMPs, there's racism, there's systemic racism, and nobody can really give a good example. Here's the example of systemic racism. They say, oh, the overrepresentation in prisons, etc., is the reason that there's systemic racism, or the reason that we think that there's systemic racism. But that doesn't hold water when you examine it, right? Like if that was true, then the system is very anti-men. Is that true? I don't think so. Maybe men are more likely to commit crimes, and that's why they're caught committing crimes more, right? Equality doesn't mean arresting more women because, we've got all these men committing crimes. We've got to get some women in there, right? It doesn't work like that. But for racism, it does. For racism, the laws are somehow wrong. So it's interesting to see. And when you call a system racist, when you say this system is racist, the system isn't made up of the buildings. The system isn't made up of the fridge and the door when you come in and the car you drive to get there. The system is made up of people, built of rules people have made. And when you look at the system structure throughout the history, are these racist people making the rules? They're doing their best to do what's right in their communities, right? And we've got the RCMP being accused of systemic racism. We've got cops being vilified across the West. Cops are terrible, awful, terrible people, right? Here's Evan Solomon tweeting, Aaron O'Toole, MP, refuses to say that there is systemic racism in Canada, even after the RCMP agrees there is. The RCMP took a week, the commissioner of the RCMP and the assistant superintendent or assistant to Miss Lucky, took a week to say that there was systemic racism after after questioning what the definition of systemic racism is, and the reason I explained it then was, if you say yes, there's systemic racism, you're accusing your people of being racist, of having these racist rules written into the system. If the laws are racist, are the laws racist? I think that they've been worked on quite a lot to be justice being blind, right? It's not like if you are part of this group of people, you get these allowances. And yeah, there is part of that in our system, right? But it's certainly not beneficial to white people, right? It's certainly, there are rules that are explicitly written to counter the bias in the system. So, how can that system be racist? A white supremacy, patriarchal, racist system. I don't understand. And the fact that Brenda Lucky and the assistant, and I can't remember his name, or her name, whatever name, defending their officers and saying, no, our officers aren't racist. Maybe there are some here and there, and we do a lot of work on it, and we have been doing a lot of work on it, and the conversation has been ongoing, had to change their tune. And within a week, they changed their tune. So Evan's using this, the week-long struggle session that I talked about the other week when that was happening, to justify Aaron being incredulous that Aaron O'Toole refused to say there's systemic racism in Canada. I would love some examples. I would love some examples of systemic racism that aren't look at the incarceration rates, because that's not an honest example of the racism in Canada, the quote-unquote racism in Canada. Here's Justin Trudeau talking about how all cops and all systems in Canada are racist to the core. I couldn't find this video. They scrubbed it except for Facebook. I don't know why Facebook is keeping videos that are being scrubbed on other systems, but if it's scrubbed on YouTube, it's on Facebook and BitChute, apparently, recently. Anyway, here's Justin Trudeau on the 11th talking about how all Canadian systems are racist. Here we go.
Systemic racism is an issue right across the country, in all our institutions, including in all our police forces, including in the RCMP. That's what systemic racism is.
I think the RCMP is a racist institution.
This is supposed to explain it to you. This is supposed to be the explanation. What is it? It's systemic racism. It's from the top to the bottom. You have to question it. You can't see it. If you don't understand why I'm angry, then you don't understand me. Elizabeth May. It is a straw man argument. It's not explaining. It's gaslighting also. It's not explaining what the problem is. What's the problem? We'll fix it, right? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? What could it possibly be? Oh, it's unconscious, but I don't even know I'm doing it, so I can't possibly fix it. We have to strike down the whole system altogether, defund the police, and build it brand new without racism. And somehow, whites giving blacks $10 in the not exclusion zone, the autonomous zone is equal. That's racist. It's racist. It's racist. So it's really, really, really interesting to see the police, the coordinated, yes, all of our systems are full of racism, top to bottom, filled with racism, and that would imply filled with racists. Are Canada's systems filled with racists? Is Parliament filled with racists, filled with people like Marwan Tabbara and Harjit Sajjan? Are these guys racist people for being a part of this racist system that they are governing? Do you see? It is unbelievable that these leaders are throwing the institutions under the bus and making the leaders of the institutions fall in line, or we're going to replace you with somebody who is going to say, see this speech? They're going to say this. So you can say this and keep your job, or your next person, the next person who takes over for you will say it. The RCMP is racist. Every system in Canada is racist. The Prime Minister said so. The leader, or the former leader of the Green Party, said so. The NDP is going to say so in just a minute. Here's what vilifying police officers get you. This is Steve Deese. I don't know who Steve is personally. He's a blue check mark. He's award-winning BS exterminator. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He says Atlanta police officers are refusing to answer the radio and walking off the job. The country can go screw themselves. If you want a society without police, we'll give you one. Let it burn. And the thing is, the Atlanta police, the Atlanta mayor, basically went around due process and blamed a cop for the death of somebody in custody. And no other police services are willing to lend officers to that jurisdiction for fear of the same type of thing happening, right? If I've talked about it before, if you've never been in a crisis, sometimes things happen in a crisis that are out of people's control. So I've seen multiple reports. Usually a blue check mark is like a reporter, so I'll find out what kind of reporter this person is. But I've seen a lot of other reports talking about how Atlanta cops were walking off the job, lots of 911 calls weren't answered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I try and burn that down to one quick tweet. So that's what this one is. But it's interesting because that's what you get when you vilify police officers and don't support them. Now in Canada, we've got the SIU in Ontario anyway. So there's a arm's length investigatory body that looks into situations where somebody dies. So it's not up to the mayor to bring justice in. So I don't think we're going to see necessarily the same kind of walking off the job that they're seeing down in the United States in Canada. But I think that it's really notable that there are people who are jumping on the defund police bandwagon. They just don't understand how change happens in Canada. You don't take money away from police. Like probably something like 80% of the budget is salary, right? And unless you're going to mass fire police, and maybe that's what the mob wants, you're not going to reduce the budget. And even if you did mass fire police, they're still on the hook for a certain percentage of the salaries, blah, 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 blah. And then not even to address the question of the safety of people moving forward from that. Here's moving forward from defunding police, right? Like it doesn't address the need for officers, the need for coverage and people to respond to calls, et cetera, et cetera. So here's the mayor of Guelph, my city. And he says he wants this to be clear. No, I do not support the defunding our police out of a desire to punish them. I'm not here to punish the good men and women of our service who do one heck of a good job caring for our city. So this is the first time I've seen a politician go on this slant, which is not to vilify the police, but to say that they don't support this. Now, Cam Guthrie also asked for the Guelph police to have a 0% budget increase for 2021. They agreed, but only because of the COVID-19 reduction in need for service, because nobody's needed for crashes or nobody has been needed for traffic accidents and all that other, the usual churn of a city, right? So there's less cost associated with that, less overtime, less whatever, and all of that's built into a police budget. Man, I'm talking long today. Sorry about that. 25 minutes. Whew. Anyway, so this is the first time I've seen somebody say it like this, and I appreciated this. I said, "Good job. Now do racism." It's the job of a leader to talk about the witch hunts that are going on and to articulate how wrong it is to vilify all police officers or to say everybody in the institution is racist, right? Here's the Upper Grand District School Board, and they put out this, equity and inclusive education. And it says, hold on. It says, anti-Black and Indigenous racism is deeply rooted in our country, society, institutions, and our history, and much work needs to be done to address this systemic racism. As an educational community, we have a responsibility to identify and describe racism and oppression, and then work to dismantle it. Putting out communiques like this imply that the system that they were working in, the Upper Grand District School Board, is racist. If all of the systems in Canada are if all of the country, society, institutions, and history are racist, then it stands to reason that the Upper Grand District School Board is racist. And if it's a deeply rooted problem, who are the deeply rooted racists in my community? Is it all the students or all the teachers they hired? As I said, institutions are made up of people who are trying their best with the rules laid out by society. And I refuse to believe that this has become the biggest issue in this short time. Like, it's just crazy. Here's Jagmeet Singh talking about how the Speaker of the House was racist to eject him from the House. I'm not going to play it because Vasi Kapoulis leads him into it. And the whole conversation is kind of should we amend parliamentary rules to be able to name this? Blah blah blah. It's garbage. The last story for this morning is it's garbage because parliamentary rules exist for a reason, and if you want to amend them, bring up the amendments in Parliament. But talking about it in the press as if like the press is the opposition that you're negotiating with is inappropriate. I didn't like any of this. Anyway, here's the last one. There's a vandal or vandals who painted a Pierre Elliott Trudeau statue with blackface. The statue was a gold statue, so I mean it's like hard to tell anyway. So I think it's kind of weird. But police are looking for the people who did this, and they're going to charge them with a hate crime. I don't know, man. We've seen videos of people pulling down statues all over the United States and seeming to have no consequences. I don't know if there's been any. I haven't actually looked, but I should look. I don't know if there's been statues defaced or pulled down in Canada. I know that we had Sir John A. pulled down in BC, but that was through City Council. Like, City Council voted for that. But I don't think that there's been like mobs of rioters pulling down statues in Canada. But a hate crime? I mean, sure, vandalism. Yeah, look for them for vandalism, but I don't know that's a hate crime. Especially because our prime minister like actually did it. Like, not this prime minister, his son, which is also inappropriate for various reasons. Okay. That's enough for me today. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. I had a recording with Kelly yesterday. It was lots of fun. We talked about racism, because apparently that's the most important thing in Canada right now. It's not any of the other stuff that's happening. Have you been to the grocery store lately? It's really expensive. It's not any of that stuff. It's not the virus. It's not the slippery slope of being tracked. It's not any of those things. It's racism, you racists. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.